They're here today. It's the same problems. The coming collapse, financial crisis, is much greater than what we went through in 08, 09.
They didn't listen in 2008, and they're still not listening today. Peter Schiff warned us then, and he's warning us now. But this time, it's not just a housing crash or a banking collapse. It's the U.S. government itself that can't pay its bills. A debt crisis, a currency crisis, and a broken housing market. This is bigger than 2008. Are you ready for what's coming?
If you're so reckless and like the only way I'm going to save is if I have a mortgage I have to pay down. But, you could take the money. I used to tell people during the housing bubble days, look, just, if you can rent for cheaper, then rent and take all the money you save and invest it. Open up a brokerage account, invest the money. Don't just spend it out. Don't just, buy a fancier car or take more vacations with the money you save by renting. Invest that money, right, in an actual investment. But inflation too has actually been higher than the CPI. So when people say housing's done 2 or 3% more than inflation, that's because we're not really counting all the inflation. So it's actually been higher. But, if you look at what's happened to the dollar, ever since we've had the Fed, when the Fed came in 1913, you only needed $20 to buy an ounce of gold. Now you need almost $2,400 to buy an ounce of gold. So over that 100, plus years, the dollar's lost almost, 99.5% of its value. I mean, so everything is going to cost 20 times more when the dollar is 99% less valuable. So in terms of gold, houses, may not be any more expensive than they were 100 years ago, as far as how much gold you need to buy them. Although, now we're building bigger houses than we built back then, more square feet, more bathrooms, stuff like that. So there's more that goes into them. In some markets, I think they will go down, even in nominal terms. But I think that there's going to be so much inflation that's going to continue to be created. It's going to be difficult to see a meaningful reduction in nominal housing prices. But in real terms, right, in terms of an ounce of gold, how many ounces will you need to buy the average home? There, I think you can see a crash in home prices. And I think you might be able to see the decline by just comparing the price of a house to what you pay for groceries, what you pay for electricity. There you might see, the house is actually a lot cheaper now compared to my grocery bill. But it doesn't mean that it's actually gone down. Same problems that I correctly observed in the years leading up to the 08 financial crisis. They're here today. It's the same problems created by the same source. Only the scale is larger. The coming collapse, financial crisis, is much greater than what we went through in 08, 09. But the same people who couldn't see it coming back then are oblivious to it now. And they're going to have the same reaction, just like in 2008. People were saying, nobody could have seen this coming. This just totally came out of left field. Black swan, 100-year flood, right? Don't blame anybody for not knowing that this crazy thing was going to happen. Of course, ignoring all the people, myself included, who did see it coming because it was predictable. It was not a black swan. It was a garden variety swan, if you understand, what to look for. And so we have another gigantic white swan that they can't see. That's looming. That's much bigger because it's not just going to be a garden variety financial crisis like we had in 08. It's going to be a sovereign debt crisis. And it's not just subprime mortgage borrowers that can't pay back what they borrowed. It's the U.S. government that can't pay what it borrowed. It's going to be a currency crisis because when the U.S. government can't pay, the Fed prints. And that is going to turn the inflation problem into a potentially hyperinflation problem, but certainly a much bigger inflation problem than the large inflation problem we have right now. And inflation is the number one economic problem in the country, and it's going to get a lot worse as this crisis unfolds.
I think for a lot of people, their main concern today is housing prices. What are your thoughts on the current state of the housing market?
The government has totally screwed up the housing market. Prices for homes have been, artificially high for decades because of government subsidies. The government guarantees mortgages. And because of that, mortgages get made on much looser terms and get extended to far less creditworthy borrowers than would be the case in a free market. And in a free market, down payments might be 20%. But with the government, people could buy with nothing down or 3% or very low down payments. And in the free market, banks would be a lot more concerned about the ability to pay. But once the government guarantees the mortgage, no one cares if the homeowner can pay, because if he doesn't pay, the government will. So this has caused a lot of excess credit to be pushed into single-family housing, condos. People have bought homes that otherwise might have rented. And so more owner-occupied housing has been built than might otherwise have been built. We might have had more multifamily, more apartments, but the government, through subsidies, kind of pushed everybody into home ownership and pushed up the price of homes to the point that people were really stretching to borrow a lot of money to buy homes that they really couldn't afford. And so the market has been screwed up for a long time. So the mortgages that didn't default, they were fine. Mm-hmm. It was only when the borrowers defaulted where it was a problem. And that was a big problem for a lot of banks. But today, it's not about default. It's about every single mortgage that the bank owns, because it's losing money on even the good mortgages because they're underwater. They have a mortgage that pays them 3 or 4%, but the Fed funds rate is over 5%. Banks still own a lot of mortgage debt, a lot of mortgage-backed securities, a lot of treasury debt. All that is underwater. I mean, these banks are all insolvent, including the too big to fail banks. But the government lets them pretend they're not by not having to mark to market these massive losses, because they hide under the assumption that they're going to hold these investments to maturity, these mortgages and these bonds. But they may not have that luxury. If their customers need their money for whatever reason, they're not going to have it because they've lost it in the bond market. But the other part of your question, so you have all of these homeowners now that have locked in these low mortgages. They're not moving. That means those houses are really off the market. And if you want to buy a house now, there's not a lot of inventory and there's not a lot of new construction because it costs a lot to build, with rising material costs, rising labor costs. And so people are stuck. Home prices are not falling, which they normally would, with a big rise in interest rates. Like we've seen, mortgage rates have gone from 3% to 8%. You would expect a big drop in home prices. Generally, when you're young and have, no real roots anywhere, you don't know where you may end up settling down, if you may settle down, who you're going to marry, how many kids you're going to have, if you're going to have kids. Those are a lot of things that are important when it comes to, planting roots and buying a home. But one of the benefits of being young and being single is you can kind of play it by ear. You can go wherever the wind blows you. And why do you want to be tied down to a home? Sure, you can sell your home at a gain right now, but the market could change. Somebody could buy a house today and it's down. And it could take you months, maybe years to sell a house unless you're really willing to move the price down. Whereas if you're young, if you're single and you're renting, you can get out of a lease very easily. You get a job offer in another city, you meet a girl in another city, another country, and you can go, right? So it's like renting has a lot of perks when, you're single. And then you don't need a lot of space. You don't have the wife and kids. Maybe do you have a pet? There are a lot of people that were pressed into home ownership by overzealous realtors who make a big commission. And then the idea that, oh yeah, I'm going to get rich owning home. Realtors kind of perverted the American dream into home ownership. Like, that's the American dream. Buy a home and get rich, as if the home makes you rich. A house depletes your savings. It's a money pit. Houses are expensive. How much money I spend on this house, how much money I spend on my Connecticut house. It's crazy the amount of money that a house costs you. Now, people get bailed out because they think, oh, the house appreciates. Not always. It's inflation, really. That's doing it. And all that's happening is the land is keeping pace. But houses don't. Even if somebody tells you, oh, here's this house that I sold for $1 million and I bought it whatever, 10, 20 years ago for $500,000. If you think about all the money they put into that house over that period of time, they may not have made any money. A lot of the houses too that were bought back then, if you don't redo the kitchens, redo the bathroom, put on a new roof, your audio-visual systems are all obsolete, the wiring. A lot of stuff has to be brought up to date in order to sell it for the $1 million. A lot of money was spent. A lot of these houses too, if they weren't updated over the years, they're considered a tear down. What does that mean? A tear down, people say, well, my house, a tear down means a house that was once brand new and had a lot of value now has zero value. It's going to be torn down. The only thing that has value is the land itself. The house is worthless.
If this shook you even a little, now's the time to stay informed, not surprised. Like the video if you learned something valuable. Subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss critical updates that the mainstream won't show you. And let us know in the comments. Do you think the collapse has already started? Stay sharp, stay ahead.